exercise, you get that element out. So I am all up for making it fun and making it cool and making it sound really sexy. Because there's a colleague of mine who keeps saying that we need to make process sexy.
Welcome to Process Pioneers, the show that takes a deep dive into the minds of decision makers, key influencers, and process experts who are pioneering the world of everything process.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Process Pioneers. Today I have the absolute privilege of sitting down with Raje. He is a process design and improvement consultant and specialist. He's worked in a number of the nation's largest organizations over the last 10 years, I believe it is. He's got an extensive background in process management and process improvement. So I'm really excited to have you here with us today, Ant.
I'm excited to be here as well, Daniel.
That's great. And so to kick us off, what I might do is pass the ball to you to give us maybe a little bit more comprehensive overview or history of where that first interest came from for BPM or process management, and then I guess a timeline leading up to today and where you are right now.
Yeah. So if I go back to where the interest started, so by basic qualification, I'm a mechanical engineer. So I did my mechanical engineering in India, and I think 2003 to 2007. First 3 years were pretty much like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what this is, and it's way too technical or whatever, but I somehow managed to get through the first 3 years. And come last year of engineering, we got through into a subject which was operations engineering, and it basically talked about the process value proposition. It talked about bottleneck, critical path management, and stuff like that. That's where I went, this is something interesting, and this is something that just got my interest, and I think I scored the highest in that subject. And I suddenly went, this seems logical. This is more like technical, yet it is very logical and qualitative and quantitative as well. So that's where my interest peaked. After that, so it happens in India, I ended up joining a software company, an IT firm. And again, I was like, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. But then what happened, luckily, I guess that was probably the turning point for my career, was I got put into a team which was like the business process management team.
Right.
So again, initially I had no idea as to what this team does, and there was no coding involved and nothing of that sort. So I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in an IT firm that doesn't do coding. But when we started working on it, that's when all these things from my last year of engineering came back to me. I said, so this is critical path management. This is understanding tasks end to end to go, what happens first, what comes after, then what follows. So I said, okay, this is something is logical, is again, and it adds a lot of value, I guess, to the work that we're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, like you don't know what you're doing. So that's where my interest kind of peaked, and I stayed with the firm for 3 years back in India. And that's where I did my Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certification. And we did a couple of internal Lean Six Sigma Green Belt projects. And then I was hooked, and I was like, this is it. This is where I want to be. I want to be a process designer to a consultant and specialize in this field. I said, I guess I found my calling.
Yeah.
But then I came over here. I had to do my master's, and that's why I picked the Masters of Engineering with a major in operations at UTS. And again, a lot of the same subjects were there around quality control, quality process management, and we did a bit of like Six Sigma concepts in the same course as well. So I had a bit of an upper hand, and I managed to score well because I'd already done the Lean Six Sigma Green Belt course.
Right.
And from there, I joined, I think Vodafone was my first job. I was in Vodafone in the retail stores while I was studying, but I always had that process lens on everything that we used to do in the stores. So I would go talk to my manager about, hang on, why are we doing it why do we do the stock take like this? If we kind of if we do a bit of 5S, I mean, I won't say 5S to him, but if we arrange our devices and stuff like this in the evening, probably it'll make it faster. We can do things better. The banking, I would go, hang on, if we do the banking like this. So I've always had those kind of discussions. So I always kept my process hat on.
Right.
While I was studying, even though it would go like it was just a casual job in a store, but I thought, let's not lose touch. And from there, I moved on to the head office, worked there for a couple of years. That's where we got trained on Six Sigma Black Belt. So we had like a 1 month extensive training, and we did like a couple of black belt course while I was there. From there, it was just like, I was like, yes, this is it. This is where I'm going to stay. Like I figured out this is the country where I'm staying in, and
Yep.
this is the field that I'm going to stay in. And
Mm.
since then, it's been like, yeah. And then when you said that, it suddenly occurred to me like, yeah, actually, I went from Vodafone to Telstra, Telstra to Woolworths, and Woolworths to the NRMA. I'm going, actually, they are pretty big names. It never occurred to me that they've been, but it's been interesting to see like how process could still be a very alien thing for even big organizations. They could do bits and pieces, but from an enterprise level. Yeah, so it was an interesting but actually, I guess that's the reason I had the job in the first place.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we were they too mature and very ready. I'm like, I wouldn't have a job. So yeah.
Yes, yeah. And when you, with that process hat on,
Mm,
when you were suggesting the different, we should do this, we should try
mm,
this,
yeah.
did you find that you faced much resistance there? Or I guess it was a journey of learning to articulate the value in changing that process?
Yeah, and like you said, it's more about talking about the value. So if I'm talking about, so one thing I've learned, I guess, over the years is who your stakeholders are, where does their interest lie, and what's in it for them. And that has to be the key to your discussion. So do all your stats, do all your quant work, do all your statistical work on whatever tool and stuff like that. But I always keep it in the back, probably in appendix. I literally try to extract out what's in it for my stakeholder. So when I'm talking to my store manager and I'm going, you then don't need 3 hours worth of stock take staff hours. You can do it in two. So you'll save 1 hour per resource. So we can do it faster. So you know what? You don't have, so I would go, you don't have to roster me from say 6 to 9. You can just roster me from 6 to 8 and we'll be done. And he was, yeah, that makes sense. So for him, it was more the start, that is literally the casual hours he needs to allocate. And when he sees that, so he doesn't really care like what I'm doing and how I'm setting things up. I just go tell him, you'll save an hour in your stock take. He goes, yep, do whatever you're planning to do kind of thing. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
more like you understand what your stakeholders' interests are and what's in it for them. So
yeah,
even
yeah,
when I'm putting my packs together or my recommendations together, it's always like, I guess, walk in their shoes to understand what's in it for them.
yeah, yeah.
That always helps.
Yeah, and I guess when for them, if they've got KPIs they need to hit, then it's only going to make them look better.
Yeah, exactly. It's about like making things better for them. And imagine if I was the casual doing the stock take, actually it is making things better for me. I can get out and get home faster,
Mm.
but I'm going in the process, I'm saving you labor hours. So how about that? And it's like a win-win. So
Yeah.
that was like,
Right.
that's where I learned that it's, yeah, how you kind of like relate to your stakeholders. And since then it's been the same, like even if you're talking to a GM level or a CXO level, I
Mm.
try to put myself in their shoes to go, as a CXO, I don't have that much time. So you got to give me the message in 15 minutes
Yeah.
so that I can take the next 10 minutes to make a decision. And that's literally then you go, what's in it for them?
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess what just on that, in I guess pitching this to that senior management or the CXO level,
Mm,
what I'd imagine that there would be reoccurring the same reoccurring value generally
mm,
that comes up when pitching to that key stakeholder or the key
mm,
decision maker.
mm.
What have you found though the reoccurring value or what's the return on process there that you're trying to pitch to that level?
So I think it depends, where does that senior management sit or which team do they belong to and what their, like you said, their KPIs are. So if I think about like my CXO, who is the chief customer officer, for her, it's pretty much all about member experience improvement to make things simpler, easier, faster, better for our members. That's it. So I could come up with a very clear, lean, like a design. I can use design for Six Sigma and come up with a very sharp, precise process. But I'm not going to present that to her. What I'm going to present is the other end of it to go, what does the member at this end, what will they see? What will they experience?
Right.
Because that is something that resonates strongly to her. So I could be working on 10 different kind of projects. But if I'm talking to her, I just go, this is the member experience improvement that this drives. So that is your return on process. So she doesn't need to know what's happening in the back end, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just try translating it to the member experience improvement, because that resonates very strongly with my senior leadership.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
So, like, even if I look at something like if I'm doing a internal process improvement for example, the quality of campaigns that we are doing. So I worked with marketing to do a bit of that work. My focus and my pitch to my senior leadership was your members get targeted communication that they will actually take action on. That's what's in it for them. And they went, yep, that makes sense. Rather than going, you will save this much time in review, you'll have, less time spent in reviews and sign offs, and you would have, your speed to market is going to increase. That's all the process. I guess that those are all the process KPIs. I
Yeah,
told them this will deliver you targeted, where timely comms that the members would actually respond to.
right.
So they said, yep, those improvements then make sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, for someone listening right now that they're hearing you talk, maybe business process management is quite a new topic for them.
mm,
Maybe they're within an organization that doesn't have a very high level of BPM maturity.
yeah,
There's obviously a lot of various definitions and descriptions of business process management out there, but
yeah,
how would you define BPM if there was someone that came to you, they were like, Ant, I've heard
yeah.
of this
Mm,
topic. What
mm.
is it about?
So the way I go about, so I was doing some work with a operational team here in my current job. They do a lot of the back end office processes work, like it's very admin based. And when I was talking to them about business process management and op model design, obviously I can't use those words. So I said, we are going to put together a CV for your team. It's your resume that when you give to someone, they know exactly what you are, what you do, and the kind of things you've been doing. So I go think of business process management as you're trying to create your company's CV or resume. So when you go and talk to Daniel, and if I had to introduce myself to you, I'd go, Daniel, here's my LinkedIn profile. Now you know, okay, this is the area that Ant plays in. He's a process improvement person. He's worked in this kind of organization. This is how his functional or technical skills. So I told them, like, we are just putting together a resume for you guys, which we can then take to the rest of the company and go, this is what this team does. They're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That, like, I know what a resume is. I know the kind of information is in there. So I said, just think about all the things your company plays in, all the areas that they work in. You're just trying to put together a one pager summary of that, and that is your business process management op model framework.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the dumbed down version of business process management.
Yeah, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And let's talk about today's climate because
Yeah.
obviously, right now, we're doing the interview and we're still in the middle of the whole sort of coronavirus um, situation.
Mm.
Over the last couple of months, obviously, a lot of industries, a lot of businesses have been severely disrupted, some to the point where they're collapsing.
Mm.
And for other businesses, it's actually boosting their business,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, for
Mm.
right now. And then you've got all of the different organizations that fall in between, that some
Yeah.
are benefiting from the current season and some are struggling, and maybe
Mm.
some are only slightly struggling,
Yeah.
but still struggling. And talk to us about how, I guess, the value or your experience in
Mm.
how BPM plays a role in this
Yeah.
current climate.
Yeah, and it's, I guess, like a very topical question. It's really like the burning topic at the moment for us as well. But what I've seen is that, and if if I can take the liberty of correlating the performances of the businesses that are doing better against the businesses that are not doing so well, I guess it's because the process management thinking and knowing again what your company does inside out, I think that gives you a very strong foundation for very effective business continuity. And I guess it makes the business think on its feet because they have a very clear view of these are the things we do. So as soon as a disruption comes in, they exactly know how to respond to it or kind of like make changes or be flexible to it. But to do that, you actually first you need to have a very clear view of what your organization does inside out. And that's what I guess with the business process management thinking helps you prepare for. So it enables that. Even you still need the operational expertise, the subject matter experts within those functional units to actually make those changes and respond to the change. But what you at least do is you've created that baseline and that foundation for them to go. And now it's a very interesting time, I think. So I guess a lot of companies will now go back to their operational models to go, guys, did we factor in a disruption like this ever? Like we know we have some continuity plans or some, what if there's a power outage or what if there's an earthquake for like a company in New Zealand, they would definitely have a earthquake kind of like preparation plan, stuff like that. So now they'll also go, did we ever think of something like that where all our teams would be isolated and they'll probably be remote and we need to provide all the support and stuff like that. So now I think every company who's, even if they're not really mature or if they're very mature, I think the companies that are very mature will be the first one to go, let's open up our operating model again. Let's just slot in isolation, work from home, continuity plan in there as well to make sure everything's documented the way it is. And for us as well, there's been we've actually gone through a journey where we had to get a lot of our contact center frontline staff working from home. So to get them up and running, one from a technical point of view, but also making sure they have all the information at hand. They know exactly what to do, how to do it on every different system that they need to touch. We had to make sure that they're all documented, they've got it. And that's where, again, the process thinking comes in. So I guess process becomes a very critical, I guess, the business continuity in the business continuity strategy, because it gives them that foundation to go. And maybe people might think I'm being a pessimist or a bit of a, I guess, I don't want to like scare people, but what if this happens again? Because we know this is a mutating virus. So it might change shape or form and then come back again. So what next? So you need to prepare for what if this or something like this happens all over again. Like I've heard like some company, there's a friend of mine, I think he works in a banking industry, and apparently they just literally within a day, they had 5,000 of their staff working from home, no impacts.
Wow.
And I was going, yeah, I think they have a very solid process management or a business continuity plan with an op model ready. That's why they could do that migration straight up. But yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like from what you're saying, it's the business processes, it affects all levels of an organization, whether it's that person on the front line that needs to be onboarded or trained up, all the way through to senior management or the CXO level. Talk to us about how, I guess a little bit more about that, how it does impact the different layers of an organization, the different levels of an organization. I guess you could look at you could talk to the process architecture of an organization and how the processes actually align with strategy.
Yeah, so that's a good question. If you think about it, I guess what process management or process architecture does is it defines a very clear, I guess, an ownership model and a bit of a RACI as well, that who's responsible, who's accountable. So what it does is that you can then align your continuity or the contingency plans and actions, and you can give them very clear ownership. So when it comes to something like this happening, the CXOs very clearly know the kind of decisions they need to make and who will they impact. So if I go top down, they can then make those decisions because they know who the owners of all these various processes, sub-processes are. So they know who they need to get in touch with, or we know how to roll up that information to the higher level. And as soon as they go that, as soon as I sign this executive order, I know who's going to implement what element of it. So they'll have that very clear view. Then come down to the lower level, the middle management, they know exactly where this decision is coming from, why this decision has been made and who has made it, and who do I need to then go talk to get this operationalized. And from there to the, I guess, the front line or like someone like at our level, we very clearly know, okay, as soon as this happens, I need to make sure that I carry my laptop home every single day until I get any further notice from my manager. So that ways it kind of trickles down. So the CXO makes an executive decision to go, guys, we cannot come into office from tomorrow, period. The managers go, all my staff's ready. Yep. You've got your hardware, everything set up. I, as a frontline, go, yes, I need to carry this laptop. I need to make sure I take my headphones home. I need to make sure I take the VPN key home, and I know what I'm doing. So that's how I think process maturity model and the process documentation just kind of helps you trickle down those action plans.
Mm-hmm. So for someone listening, they might be hearing you and thinking, oh, this sounds great. I need to go talk to my senior management about this, about
Yeah,
the topic of managing and documenting and improving our processes.
yeah.
But is there, and I guess what are the most common forms of like resistance, or what are the most common objections, I should say, to implementing BPM?
Mm.
Maybe it's out of a lack of understanding. But what are the, if they are going to, if they should expect some sort of objection, what should they expect when talking to senior management?
I guess one probably sometimes I guess the biggest objection would come from the fact I think it stems from the fear of the unknown
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. So they're like, oh, I don't know what this is. I'm not sure what this is. Some people then look at it like some kind of an audit. They'll go, oh, so are you going to tell me how inefficient my group is, or what if people find out that none of my processes are documented, so it's like bad PR for my space? Or they can go, oh, does that mean you'll tell me that you really don't need this person, you don't need that person, or there's a lot of waste in your part of the business? And like it probably uncover some of that stuff and it might surface it up. But like I said, again, the whole objective is to understand what's in it for them. To basically, I guess that's where you have to be a bit like, I guess you reword your, I guess, approach to go. I mean, the way I might talk to someone in marketing is different to the way I'll talk to someone in the IT team,
Mm.
even though we're doing the same kind of work in both the areas. But I think it's one that's, like I said, yeah, the fear of the unknown, because and that's why I said I've seen that for business process management, one of the key things is like senior stakeholder like onboarding, and they need to be taken through some sort of a training or a course or a 2 hour like lunch and learn, where we actually first talk to them about what it is, if you know that the maturity is not there yet. Because I've worked in organizations where it's the whole Lean Six Sigma approach has actually come down from the CEO. So we've had a new CEO come in who's all over like Lean Six Sigma, and he said, "Hey guys, why are you not doing this?" So we've had that to where the senior management had no idea what processes do and what
Yeah.
they mean, even though they've been doing it their entire life.
Yeah.
And which is, I think, one of the interesting things. You go, you actually know all this. You just don't know it in these words.
Yeah.
You exactly know what each of your team does, how they do it, and all that. You know all your operational data, you know your KPIs. You just don't know it in this way. So yeah, it's like that's one, they don't either know what this is all about, or they go that it's a bit of an audit or a like a reflection. It'll probably be like an introspection exercise where I'll be like, oh shit, I don't have anything documented, or we have nothing, and this will all surface up. But it's telling them or taking them on the journey to go. It's not about calling out the gaps, but it's about getting you ready and closing those gaps off, so that you have a very clear view and a very good understanding of how your team's operating, and then it'll help you react to different situations and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess one other maybe concern that might arise during the journey is regarding the governance of the processes. So who's documenting the processes, who's checking them off,
Yeah.
who's making sure that they're what we need to be following, and who's making sure that it's being done correctly.
Yeah.
I guess especially now that with everyone working at home, who's doing what and what are they doing, and are they following it correctly? Talk to us about process governance and whether, like that, I guess it's that control versus liberty debate. Is it slowing things down, or is it actually giving that freedom that's required?
I guess I'm a very strong believer of the freedom within a framework. So like this is what business process management is. This is how it works and operates, but it actually, I guess there should be a bit of a freedom given to each teams or areas or organizations to however they want to implement it, because the end result is constant. We know what we need at the end. So feel free to do it as whatever you want to do it as. You could have it as a very fun field exercise, and you can get people to, like, give them roles and stuff like this. This is what we've done in the past as well, where we've come up with just cool sounding roles for process champions and process owners and that kind of stuff, to make them like make it a bit more cooler and a fun thing to have, rather than going, you will be responsible for these parts of the processes. So we try to make it like, I think we had like a superhero theme going or something, but like you said, it's more about getting that end result rather than
Yeah.
how do you execute it. So, and a lot of, I guess like these agile firms and the companies, they have all these various teams and task force, you can call them whatever, but you need to get that end result. So I think that's one way of kind of getting the boredom or the whole, it's such a tedious exercise. You get that element out. So I am all up for making it fun and making it cool and making it, like, sound really sexy.
Yeah.
Because there's a colleague of mine who keeps saying like, we need to make process sexy. Yeah, because a lot of people think, oh, it's like an audit, or we got to document all the things in a flow chart or whatever. But process can also be sexy. So it's like making it like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then taking the people on the journey of how do we then, and then what happens is, with that, you will get the ownership will just come from the functional units themselves. They'll actually want to take this up. So if you may come up with a cool name for them or a cool title for them, they're like, yeah, I want that. So
Yeah. Right. Right.
you will eventually immediately get that ownership, rather than you forcing it down onto someone to go, hey, Mr. X, you are now responsible for this. They'll go, oh, I mean, what am I doing? And a lot of times, because what happens is, a lot of this process thing, if you look at it, it's not a part of their job description,
Right.
or they might not be getting paid extra for this. So they'll be like, what's in it for me? So that's where I think, just I feel like making it sound cool and sexy becomes like a very good tool to get the ownership come up from them. They're like, yeah, that title sounds cool. I want that. They're like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So now you do. And then it comes down to the whole system and what tool that you use, and how does the tool enforce, to your point, everybody sitting at home who's tracking. But if the tool sends me a dashboard as a team, I'm a manager, and I go, you have 5 people in your team, they handle 20 processes each. Each of them suddenly now have 5 documents that are outdated and they've not been reviewed and refreshed. So then I can control it even while I'm sitting at home. So I guess when the implementation of the governance then comes from the system,
Yeah.
that just supports and the conceptual part is where you try to make it a bit more cool and fun, where people actually come up and sign up for it themselves.
Great.
Like, for example, the kind of like the admin team that I'm working with, I just tell them, oh, like, you guys will be like the champions, and we'll like give you like these, like, like we'll brand you up and stuff, so people know who to contact if they have a issue. But they're like, yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that. Like, give them that sense of, I guess, that development opportunity. So even for team leaders, it becomes a very interesting thing. So I talk to the team leaders and go that you may not have to do it yourself just because you're a team leader. If you've identified a talent in your team who's really good at this process or these group of processes, and you want to give them a development opportunity, why don't you assign them as the person responsible? They're like, yeah, that sounds good. So it also becomes a very good personal development tool.
Yeah.
So then basically, like I said, we were discussing before, I take the process governance idea and convert it into what's in it for them. So I go to the team lead and go, I don't talk process governance. I go, make this person a champion and
Yeah.
give them the development opportunity, and they can manage these processes for the next 6 months or whatever. They're like, yep, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
And it also, like for them, the leadership KPIs of giving, development opportunities to their team, helping them grow, all those things come into effect. But what you're doing effectively is you're doing process governance,
Yes. Right.
but like, you're just making it sound cool and sexy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I think it's a good way to go about it.
Great. And you mentioned there, you just briefly mentioned at this beginning there about agile, that
Yeah.
agile mindset or methodology. I guess that's
Yeah.
another I guess another topic of conversation where having that agile mindset or an agile organization, I feel is quite a bit of a buzzword or something that organizations are focusing on at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And for some, they're so focused on it that managing processes, that's just a distraction for them right now because they're trying to be
Mm.
agile.
Yeah,
Talk to us about agile and process and
yeah,
how they should work together, and do they work together?
yeah. I think I've been lucky to work in the organizations and with such leaders that they see the value of how process enables and supports agile. Um, and I guess the reason for that is that if you don't know what you do end to end, how would you make those rapid changes and how would you implement something faster? How would you work in a, like, your 2 week scrums and all that kind of stuff if you don't really know how it works end to end?
Mm.
So I feel that if you've not got that view sorted, it will be a more of a disruptive exercise because there might be a standard operational rhythm and then this agile thing comes in, so you're going to disrupt the rhythm. So it's like merging into a freeway while you're driving at 40 or you're driving at 120. So you got to
Yeah,
know how the current traffic looks like. So
yeah,
what I feel is that, and I've worked at Vodafone as well. I worked quite a lot with the digital team. So we identified a lot of the process improvements within the self-serve space. But then because we knew how the process works, we could do a bit of agile methodology and an agile implementation where we could go in and do some rapid changes and then actually track the impact of those changes from a process management point of view. So imagine doing like a agile work, then do a bit of control chart comes in, and then we go, okay, so this change actually changed, moved our KPI to this extent. So let's now bring in another change at this point.
yeah,
So that has worked really well for us. And yeah, so like I said, because process gives you the operating rhythm. So when you implement agile, you know exactly where should the agile methodology come into play and where it can, then loop back. So I think
yeah.
they just work hand in hand really well.
That's good. That's good.
Mm.
And what do you see the future of process analysis looking like? I guess it is changing year on year. New things are being, I guess, brought into new ideas, new concepts.
Yeah.
When you look to the future, what does process analysis and process management look like for you?
Right. A good question. It was and interesting because because now I have a bit of a downtime and over the Easter break and stuff like that because it was an interesting holiday where you couldn't go anywhere. You got to stay at home and enjoy a holiday. And being the process nerds that we sometimes are called, I said, oh, might as well look into RPA and what RPA is all about because I'm hearing a lot. I know loosely how it works. So I literally jumped onto the UiPath website because they're like pretty good and up there in the robotic automation space. And I started going through and I was doing the course. And what I realized was the future is definitely process automation, implementing intelligent automation, going into the AI space and stuff. But interestingly, the journey begins with a simple process map. So, I mean, 10 years down the line, if some other company goes, I want to get robots in like artificial, like the software robots or a hardware robot and stuff like that, you still have to work on a flow, like you have to begin with a flow chart somewhere. So
Mm.
I just see that, yes, we are advancing to that whole AI space and we're getting all these automation in. Like, for example, in Woolworths, when they were looking at the fully automated warehouses and that kind of stuff was happening, even they started with a flow chart. They needed to understand, okay, what does the process look like today from a manual point of view? And when we start automating, what elements get automated and how they get automated. So I said, okay, so we will be moving into the future and the future looks like artificial intelligence and, machine learning where the process changes just because of the machines involved in the process. But the fundamentals still going to be the same where you'll start with the understanding of the process end to end. So we
Yeah.
will be, but like that suddenly I saw, okay, so I'm in an interesting field because even though it's going to get futuristic, the very fundamental baseline and the start point will still be a flow chart of sorts. So we'll still be doing this maybe whatever tool platform, I don't know, or
Yep.
could be the robots actually doing it for you, whatever. Even we could have like robots documenting the process for us
Mm.
and doing all that, but it's still the fundamentals going to remain the same. So that's why I find this suddenly very interesting is that, oh, the fundamental and the very first step of artificial intelligence is process documentation
Mm-hmm.
and the whole process management piece. So that
Yep.
I think that also becomes a very good selling point for CXOs and leaders and stuff like if you want to do automation and you really are keen for it, well, you got to document your processes first. Like what are you going to automate? It's
Yeah.
like garbage in, garbage out. And when you're actually documenting your processes, you need to understand how efficient and lean they are
Mm.
because like this is garbage in, garbage out. So if you take a crap process and automate it, you're just going to get a lot of crap on the other side. Your bots are going to just generate a lot of crap. So
That's
I
right.
feel so like for us, I think we are in a very interesting space. We play in a very interesting space where the fundamental is not going to change much.
Mm-hmm.
The output or the end result would look drastically different or look very futuristic, sci-fi-ish,
Yep.
but the fundamental will still start with let's try to understand the process end to end. Let's have our operating model done. Do we have a business process management framework in place?
Yes. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
that I agree. I think that exactly what you're saying. If you there have been a few organizations that they've jumped at the automation on the automation train, let's automate everything. Let's dive
Mm,
straight there. But if you don't have efficient or effective processes, then you're exactly right. You're just
mm.
going to get to the wrong place faster.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm. And and then the other one was robots. Will they do the documentation? Well, I think we're starting to see like the small start of that in the whole process mining space. How
Yeah.
computers can or software can take the existing data within an organization
Mm,
and be able to model that out
mm,
in a process, in a flow chart.
mm,
And it's quite amazing. I've seen a number of process mining solutions play out. And I think when you drill down into not just what's documented, but actually what is the journey that the customer actually takes.
mm.
Because sometimes that journey the customer takes can look very different to what you've documented down
Yeah,
originally.
yeah.
So I think that'll be interesting.
And I feel that all these processes will still have a human element to it.
Mm,
And I think that's where our value add comes in as well. So like, yeah,
that's
you could
right.
do like the most impressive automation, but then the automation either would be triggered by a human or would be consumed by a human at either end.
Mm, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm excited. It'll be really
Yeah.
interesting, but I just feel that, yeah, we'll still like post-its and the work that you'll do sitting down with teams and doing post-it work will still add a lot of value to all this.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there would have been a range of people listening to this, whether they're new to the space, whether they're university students, whether it's senior management or
Mm,
CXOs listening to this interview. So for someone that wants to, I guess, dive in and learn a little bit more, because we can obviously only scrape the surface in a very short 30 to 40-minute
mm,
interview,
mm,
what would you recommend or where would you point them? I know you mentioned earlier that you wanted to learn about RPA, so you jumped
mm,
on the UiPath website.
mm, mm,
But for someone that, yeah, wants to dive into BPM a little bit more,
mm.
what direction would you point them in?
Uh, I think there's like a lot of there's a few different process maturity models that you can, I mean, I guess where you can start from a process thinking point of view. I guess there's heaps of material out there, and I guess the ones that I constantly keep going back to is the APQC frameworks and the APQC model. Then also there's the CMM maturity model as well. I also tend to look into just to give me that framework or the structure because from my telecom background, I do refer back to a lot of the ETOM framework and ITIL frameworks because they are a very good starting point if you don't know where to start with your business process management approach and how do you shape your businesses, the process landscape. So I sometimes refer back to those frameworks to go, okay, where do I start? So like I was mentioning to you in our chat before this about setting up a process maturity assessment project within our space. I looked through some of the ITIL framework and I looked at the APQC framework. And what I realized was, hang on, probably given the time that we're in, it can be a bit overwhelming. So let's just look at the way our company is structured and just look at that as our framework. But yeah, so there's a lot of resources out there. There's APQC, there's I guess some of the Six Sigma institutes and bodies that do a lot of Six Sigma certification. They have a lot of background information on process thinking, and that's probably be a good place to start. If not, I guess I feel like LinkedIn or networking, I would just literally start putting in process framework and just do a bit of a search on LinkedIn, and you'll probably see either people or pages or like resources that you could reach out to, and probably then I guess connect. I am one of those. I'm more of a people person, so if I know someone who probably might know this, I'd rather talk to a person and get more information out of them rather than looking up at a website or a web page. I'm a very people person like that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, Ant, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah.
We've been able to glean a lot from you today, just in the 40 minutes or 30 minutes we have had together. So I just want to thank you for joining us. And we'll be releasing this interview shortly, and I'm sure people are going to get a lot of value from it.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And thank you for having me. It was really good chat.